lot, I guess. But slowly. I mean, it is an institution that rightly takes time. I would like to see a church that is less afraid of free inquiry than it is today. I think the reaction to the Second Council, though understandable in part, was overdone, and I think betrayed an insecurity rather than real confidence that the Christianity can not only survive but is extraordinarily important for modernity. I totally support Benedict XVI's traditional reforms in liturgy and in the Mass, and the resurrection, so to speak, of rituals and that were sort of swept away in Vatican II. I love the Latin Mass. I see nothing wrong with that kind of traditional service. I would combine a sort of traditional service with a very liberal understanding of Jesus' message to the world, which is one of inclusion and of compassion, and not of law, but of love. In other words, the opposite of fundamentalism. And I think having the confidence that Jesus will take us through this, because he will never abandon his church, and neither will the Holy Spirit, but there are and have been dark periods. I think we're in one of those dark periods. I obviously believe that, I say obviously, that women should be allowed to be full and equal partners in the church. I really do. Just as it was in the very early days of Christianity, where women led Christianity in ways that were quite revolutionary at the time. And indeed, when you read the Gospels, you just see Jesus is so transgressive in his approach to women, either by having, as Mary Magdalene as one of his closest consorts, a single woman, former prostitute, or staying overnight in a house with Mary and Martha, where there is no male. They don't have their husband. I mean, he violated every patriarchal norm imaginable, and yet the church subsequently couldn't handle it, and the men won. And I think it's a terrible indictment. I'd also remove the celibacy requirement for priests, because I think in this culture and in our evolved world, if you don't, you're going to attract people who are shut down and panicked by their sexuality, which will select for all sorts of people that should not be in the priesthood before they have sorted out those issues. And I would, of course, find a place in which the church's clear doctrine about homosexual people, which is that they are human persons worthy of dignity, would be upheld in practice rather than in theory. And I would change the politicization of the church in America, where the bishops are basically an adjunct to the Republican Party on any number of issues, and have placed the issues of marriage and sex and abortion and contraception above that of compassion and charity and caring for the poor, which is central to the Catholic message. But I would not change an iota of the doctrine around the big things, the important things, the things we say in the creed, the things we believe. What I would do is, and what I regret, I'd love to have a quality of the priesthood that was worthy of its laity. I mean, the trouble with the creation of these Benedict bots who are just programmed to reiterate church dogma without any you don't attract the people who have the brains and the ability to really communicate the heart of the Gospels. So you sit there excruciating in most homilies, knowing it's just painful to see the deteriorating quality of these people who are as orthodox as they are unimaginative. And that's a great loss. And I would also, ask the church to be more, hope for the church to look at its own doctrines and try and, it's like what was done to the Sistine Chapel. There's so much residue covered over the original primary colors that if only, and we've looked at this painting for so long, we don't see it with fresh eyes anymore. It becomes stale. It becomes routine. It doesn't become alive. And to find a way, which is the role of the church, to make those truths live for us now. If a religion is not contemporary, if it is not living now, it is dead. And my worry is that it's sort of a walking dead right now. And this is not at the top. This is not to say there aren't huge and amazing things done by many Catholic priests and religious and laity everywhere in the world every day, which I am deeply proud of and deeply admiring of. But I do think there is a crampedness and a neurosis and a fundamentalist insecurity at the top of this. So, and I think restoring the real balance of the Second Council, which is to balance the Pope with the bishops, needs to be restored to control the imperial papacy, as it were. And that's something we've gone through. We've gone through phases of this before. I think we're going to have to return to the Second Council rather than run away from it. And I think we're going to have to find a way to make it live within, I think, a more orthodox liturgical zone. So I'm sort of a liberal in doctrine and a conservative in ritual. But that's because I also believe faith is not ultimately intellectual. It is experiential.